You know, it was 40 years ago that a 22-year-old and a 21-year-old came to Sanibel Island to pastor this church. Now, it sits here in emptiness, and we've not been here for almost 25 years, and nothing has happened to it in 25 years. But when I first got here, my wife and I, when we got here, after we got done preaching, and somebody had shown me the example of going to the back of the church, and you shake people's hands and you kiss the babies and, you know, whatever, doing the pastor thing. And I'll never forget, it was one of my first few weeks here, and I preached and some forgetful message at 22. I preached everything I knew in every message, and then I'd have to go learn something else. And so I went to the back of the church and I shook several people, and here comes this older gentleman. You know, he had a gray beard, and he looked to be in his, in his mid-60s, kind of old. Well, wait a minute, that's how old I am. So he probably looked a little bit like me, and I'm 22. And as he came out, he took my hand. He had a big billy hand, and he kind of pulled me to him, and he said, "Son, I want you to look at me." And I looked at him, and he said, "I've been a pastor for 40 years, and I want you to remember that God is faithful." Gripped my hand and walked away. I didn't realize at the time he was giving me a spiritual impartation. It was a download from God. I had studied about God's faithfulness in seminary. I had read about God's faithfulness in the scriptures. But to have somebody with battle scars in the spirit, have somebody that had weathered storms and continued to trust God, to have somebody that wept himself to sleep, I'm sure, many nights, not knowing if he could continue on. Having somebody that had lived the truth that God was faithful. He had earned the right to tell me. I had theory, but he had the gold that he pulled out of the fire that he had stood in, that he was able to impart. It was like giving me a spiritual meal. It filled me. I've never forgotten those words. Remember, God is faithful. I want to just kind of take a moment and be that older pastor. I want to kind of pull you, if I could, if I knew, you know, I could put my hand out and take your hand and pull close and look me in the eye. And I've made lots of mistakes and failures and struggles and trials. But in the last 40 years, if I've learned anything, I've learned the main thing, that our God is faithful. You can trust Him like putting your feet on a rock. You can rest in Him knowing that He'll never leave you and He'll never forsake you. Don't ever forget. Remember, God is faithful.